The morning of the marathon was supposed to be mine. I had waited for this day, dreamed of it, cried for it. For months, I trained alone. I ran through cracked sidewalks where weeds grew tall. I sprinted under burning sunsets, when the sky was orange and red like fire. I pushed my lungs until they ached. I told myself that every blister, every drop of sweat, every single breath of pain would one day be worth it. Everything had led to this moment. I tied my sneakers tighter, pulling the laces so hard my fingers stung. The shoes were old, with holes in the fabric, but they were all I had. I had no money for new ones. My parents had plenty, but they never spared even a cent for me. A new pair of running shoes for their useless daughter? Not a chance. They'd rather buy my younger sister, Melanie, her third designer handbag. Still, my heart was pounding with hope. My race bib was pinned to my shirt, a flimsy square of paper, but to me it felt like armor. I wanted them to see me, just once, as more than the family's punching bag. Maybe if I crossed that finish line, they would finally have to admit I wasn't garbage. Maybe just once they would look at me and see a fighter. My father sat at the kitchen table. He twirled the wooden baton he always carried, his little symbol of power. He used it to coach Melanie's cheerleading practices, but to me, it was nothing more than a weapon. He didn't look at me. He smirked instead, the kind of smirk that stabbed deeper than words. "You really think you're going to win against real athletes," he said, his voice dripping with poison. "Your legs were never made to win, girl. They were made to crawl." My mother poured herself a cup of coffee and laughed. Her laugh was sharp and cruel, the kind that made the hairs on my arms rise. "Don't waste your breath, Frank," she said. "Let her embarrass herself in front of the whole town. Maybe then she'll finally understand her place." Their words pierced me like nails, but I kept tying my shoes, acting as though I didn't hear them. I refused to let them see me break. From the hallway, my son Caleb peeked out. He was only 8 years old, but his eyes carried more sadness than any child should have to hold. He had seen enough cruelty in this house to know what was coming. Yet still, he whispered, "Good luck, Mom. I know you'll win." That one line, that tiny, fragile thread of love, gave me the strength I needed. I swallowed hard, kissed his forehead, and walked out the door without letting them see me cry. At the track, the world was alive. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Banners waved in the breeze. Children held posters painted with markers, cheering for their parents. Local businesses had booths with snacks and drinks. The announcer's voice boomed over the speakers, calling runners to the line. My stomach twisted like a knot. I stretched, warmed up, tried to block out every insult that lived rent-free in my head. This was my day. This was supposed to be the day I broke free. But then, before the race even started, my parents stormed onto the field. My father clutched the baton. His face was red, his jaw tight. My body froze when I saw him coming toward me. The other runners stepped back, whispering. "You think you're going to humiliate us by standing here like you belong?" he hissed. His spit landed on my cheek. I opened my mouth to speak, but the baton came down fast across my ankle. The crack of bone. The white-hot pain. The world spun. I collapsed onto the asphalt. Gasps echoed through the crowd. My ankle throbbed, already swelling, crooked at an angle no bone should ever bend. My father sneered above me. "Your legs were never made to win." And my mother's voice rose, louder than the announcer's microphone. "Crawl back to where you belong, you pathetic thing." She laughed. She actually laughed. The crowd was silent. No one moved. My vision blurred with tears, but through the pain I searched the stands desperately. And then I saw him, Caleb. He stood on the bleachers, clutching a handmade sign that read, "Go away, Mum, go." His little face crumpled when he saw me lying there broken. He started to cry. My parents didn't care. They shoved the sign from his hands, letting it fall to the ground. "See," my mother sneered, "even your own kid will learn what happens when garbage tries to run with real people." The runners whispered to one another, horrified. Some turned away, too afraid to intervene. The officials hesitated, frozen. No one moved against my father. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. But the pain was sharp, blinding. I could barely breathe. Lying there on the cold track, my ankle shattered, I realized the truth. My parents never wanted me to stand. They wanted me broken, crawling, humiliated forever. But then I heard it. Caleb's sobs, louder than the crowd, sharper than the pain. And something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to crawl, not for them. The paramedics should have rushed in. But my father raised his hand like a warning, and everyone hesitated. Even in public, even with witnesses, my parents' poison had power. People whispered, glanced nervously, and then looked away. I was left writhing on the asphalt like a stray dog no one wanted to claim. I bit down on my lip so hard I tasted blood. I refused to let them hear me scream. My body shook, but I forced myself upright. Caleb tried to run down from the bleachers, but my mother grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his small wrist. "Stay up there, boy," she snapped. "Watch what happens when trash acts important." That was my breaking point. Not the pain. Not the humiliation. The sight of my son being taught that cruelty was normal. That was the moment something inside me changed forever. The officials finally rushed over, but they didn't confront my father. No. They bowed their heads slightly, as if apologizing to him for even existing. One of them crouched down beside me, his voice trembling. Do you want to withdraw from the race?" Withdraw? He didn't call for help. He didn't order my father to step away. He just looked at me with pity, expecting me to nod and crawl off quietly, just like my parents said. My ankle throbbed violently. The pain pulsed through my leg like fire. But when I lifted my eyes, I saw Caleb. His tiny fists were pressed against his eyes, his whole body shaking. That's when I shook my head. "No," I whispered through clenched teeth. My voice was rough, but steady. The official blinked. "But, your ankle." I said no. The words tore from me like fire. They could break my bones. They could humiliate me. They could make me crawl. But I would not hand them my dignity. The starting gun went off. The runners exploded forward, sleek and fast, their bright shoes flashing against the track. Cheers swallowed the air, but none of it reached me. I was still on the ground, body screaming, ankle twisted. But then I heard Caleb's voice again, hoarse and broken, "Mom. Don't give up." So, I didn't. I put my hands down on the rough asphalt and dragged myself forward. Every movement was agony. My palms scraped and bled. My left leg bent awkwardly. My right ankle dragged behind me, swollen and useless. Fire shot through my body with each inch I gained. But I moved. If they wanted me to crawl, then I would crawl, on my own terms. Gasps turned into murmurs. Murmurs turned into silence. The runners were already far ahead, disappearing around the bend, but the crowd's eyes weren't on them anymore. They were on me. The broken woman clawing her way across the track, leaving a trail of sweat and blood. My mother hissed from the bleachers, pathetic. "Look at her making a scene. She'll never finish." But this time, my father didn't laugh. He didn't cheer for my failure. For the first time in my life, I saw something else in his eyes, fear. Fear that no matter how many times they tried to crush me, I still kept moving. Halfway around the track, my arms burned like fire. My nails broke against the asphalt. My breaths came ragged, uneven. My body begged me to stop. But then Caleb slipped free from my mother's grip and ran down. He crouched at the edge of the track, tears streaming. "You're stronger than them, Mom," he whispered. "You always were." And somehow, those words gave me a strength I didn't know I had. I kept crawling. Each inch became rebellion. Each scrape became a declaration. The finish line was still far, but the crowd had changed. Soft claps began. Then louder. They weren't clapping for the winners sprinting with perfect strides. They were clapping for me, for the broken woman who refused to quit. When I finally collapsed near the side of the track, my body gave out completely. The officials rushed to lift me, but I shoved them away. "Don't you dare carry me off like trash," I spat, my voice trembling but firm. "I leave when I say I leave." My chest heaved. My arms shook. But I had proven something, not just to them, but to myself. The hospital was a blur of white walls and pitying nurses. The doctor said my ankle was fractured in 2 places. Months of recovery ahead. As he explained, my mother cut him off with a scoff. "Don't waste your time on her. She's nothing but dead weight." My father smirked, tapping the baton against his palm. "Told you. Legs never made to win." They left without signing the papers. They left me broken in that hospital bed, with only Caleb by my side. And Caleb, oh, my sweet boy. He held my hand tight, refusing to let go. That night, lying in the sterile bed, pain pulsing through me, I stared at the ceiling and realized something had changed. My parents thought they had destroyed me forever. But they didn't realize what they created instead. They thought my legs weren't made to win. Fine. I'd show them what my mind was made for. They thought I'd crawl back to where I belonged. No. I would rise higher than they ever dreamed. And when I rose, I would make sure they were the ones forced to crawl. That was the night I began planning. Quietly. Carefully. With the same discipline I once used for running. Only this time, it wasn't for a race. It was for revenge. Recovery was agony. Every second felt like another battle. But I treated it like training. When the doctors told me I wouldn't walk the same again, I smiled to myself. They didn't understand. I wasn't just healing to walk. I was healing to rise. Months passed. Physical therapy broke me down again and again. My body shook. My eyes filled with tears. More than once, I buried my face into Caleb's shoulder and cried like a child. But every single time, he whispered, "Don't give up, Mom. Don't ever give them what they want." Those words became my fire. I relearned balance. I built muscle. I forced my body to move against the pain. The day I took my first uneven, shaky run again, I knew it wasn't just my legs healing. It was something deeper. But revenge isn't loud. It's patient. I didn't storm back into their house. I didn't scream at them. I waited. I watched. I planned. Because I knew their weakness, reputation. They didn't care about me. But they cared about being seen as winners. The proud parents of champions. And that was the weapon I sharpened. The day of the town banquet came months later. My ankle had healed, though the scars remained like a map of everything I had endured. I no longer limped. Each step was strong, steady, deliberate. I dressed in black. Not glamorous, not flashy, just sharp, clean, undeniable. A storm dressed as a woman. Caleb walked beside me, holding my hand, his eyes wide with both fear and pride. The banquet hall was overflowing. Long tables glittered with crystal glasses and silver cutlery. Chandeliers cast golden light over the crowd. My parents sat at the center table, their thrones. Melanie sparkled in her newest dress, hair styled to perfection, soaking in the attention like the queen she believed herself to be. No one noticed me enter at first. I slipped into the crowd like a shadow. The announcer tapped the microphone. "Tonight," he declared, "we honor the Franklin family. Their contributions to the town, their leadership, and their success stories. The crowd applauded. My parents rose, bowing their heads like royalty. My father's baton leaned against his chair, polished, gleaming under the light. A trophy of control. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face still. This was the stage. This was where I would break their mask. When the applause settled, I stepped forward. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying through the hall. "Before the celebration continues, I have something to say." Every head turned. Whispers began. My parents froze, shock flickering across their faces. They hadn't expected me. They thought I would stay broken, hiding in silence forever. I walked to the center, each step steady. Caleb stood at the edge of the room, watching, his little fists clenched. "My parents are being honored tonight," I said, my voice calm, almost soft. "But what no one here knows is the truth. You see trophies. You see success. But I've seen what's behind those doors. I've lived the blood and the bruises. I've crawled on the ground while they laughed." Gasps rippled through the hall. Some people shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned in, hungry for the scandal. My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough of this nonsense. She's lying." But I cut him off. For the first time in my life, I cut him off. "Do you all remember the marathon?" I asked the crowd. "Do you remember seeing me crawl across the track, broken? That wasn't an accident. That was my father." I pointed at him, my fingers steady as steel. He took a baton, this very baton, and shattered my ankle before the race even began. He told me my legs were never made to win. And my mother laughed while I cried on the ground. The room fell silent. Whispers turned to outrage. Some covered their mouths. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But I didn't stop. They tried to bury me in humiliation. They tried to teach my son that his mother was nothing but trash. But here's the truth: trash doesn't crawl. Trash doesn't survive fire. Trash doesn't rise from the ground when everything is broken. I did. My voice rose, steady, firm. And tonight, I'm not here for their approval. I'm here to show them what happens when the daughter they tried to crush refuses to stay down. I reached into my bag and pulled out the broken race bib, still stained with dried blood. I held it high. This was supposed to be my shame. But I've turned it into my crown. Because I didn't win that race by their rules. I won by mine. And I will never crawl for them again. Caleb's eyes lit up. His little hands clapped before anyone else dared. The sound was small at first, but it spread. Clap after clap, until the hall was filled with thunder. Not for them. For me. My mother's face turned pale, her lipstick cracking under the strain of her sneer. My father's hands shook against the baton. For the first time in my life, I saw them powerless. Because the mask was gone. Everyone saw them for what they were: cruel, empty, afraid. And me? I stood tall, scarred but unbroken, the storm they never saw coming. When the applause quieted, I spoke one last time. "From this day forward, you will remember this truth. You tried to make me crawl. But I stood. You tried to silence me. But I spoke. You tried to bury me. But I rose. And now, it's your turn to crawl." I stepped down from the stage. Caleb rushed into my arms, burying his face into my chest. His tears soaked my shirt, but they were tears of pride, not fear. Together, we walked out of that hall, leaving my parents in silence, surrounded by the wreckage of their own lies. The night air was cool. The stars hung like silver sparks above us. Caleb looked up at me and whispered, "You did it, Mom. You beat them." I smiled, tears running down my cheeks. "No, Caleb. We did. Because every step I took, every inch I crawled, was for you." So you'd never believe their lies. So you'd always know the truth, you are not trash, and neither am I. And for the first time, I felt free. People often think revenge is about hurting the ones who hurt you. But that night, I learned the real revenge isn't their pain. It's your freedom. It's showing them that no matter what they did, no matter how they tried to destroy you, they failed. The broken girl they mocked became the woman who stood in front of the whole town and revealed the truth. They wanted me silent. Instead, I became louder than their lies. They wanted me weak. Instead, I became unshakable. They wanted me to crawl. Instead, I rose. And that is how I finally won. Please like and subscribe for more videos, also comment where you're watching from.